Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of NHLN Opinion Plus, a weekly series airing every Friday. This is a space for our opinions where we talk about current events and questions the Latino community is curious about. Today, we are joined by Dr. Susan Huard, Chancellor of the Community College System of New Hampshire. Welcome, Susan. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
Brian, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really pleased to be here with you.
Absolutely. So this week we are going to be talking about the impact of COVID on the community college community system and serving underrepresented populations and the impact of mental health on higher education. Does that all sound good to you?
It does.
Absolutely. So let's get started by our first question. So can you tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has impacted since as of December? How has it impacted the community college system within New Hampshire? And let's start there.
Okay. Well, we were affected much as everybody else was. Our experience as community colleges was a little different than what you heard about from the four-year colleges and the residential colleges. We have 7 colleges, and 2 of them have residences. NHTI in Concord has 300 students in residence on campus. And our community college in Laconia, Lakes Region, has a few dozen. But most of our students come from the community. And the first big impact that happened that frankly not only surprised us in New Hampshire, but the entire country was that community college students did not return to their colleges in the same way that four-year colleges saw their students. And it makes sense when you think about it, because our students work. Maybe about 3/4, maybe even more than that, of our students are working while they're coming to college, and they are in those essential worker positions. So our students are, police officers, they are EMTs, they are within nursing homes and so on. So if they came back part-time. So that was the first thing. About 15% of the students didn't come back. And then the second thing was the challenge of doing our classes online and figuring out how we could have people on campus, because again, so much of what we do is hands-on. No one wants a nurse who's only heard about it and done it online, or a welder who's watched a video. We want people who can do the work. So those things happened to us that were different from the experience that other colleges had.
Very interesting. So recently, the issues of the Delta and Lambda variant, they've been making headlines across the country. Has that impacted the college community system in New Hampshire or just New Hampshire in general?
It will impact us. We had pretty much opened our doors fully once again. And so what we will do is follow the news. What we've done is we've looked at what the CDC and other in our state are saying to us about what's happening. So our classes will absolutely go on. And one of the things that faculty and staff really learned was how to pivot. So we could very well, right now our intention is to begin much of the semester in person. But as the Delta variant comes in, if it comes in significantly, we can go to online classes for a period of time. And then as life improves, go back. We still will have to think about what we do for those lab classes. So it may be that we do as we did in sort of the height of the pandemic, and where a lab would normally hold, 16 to 20 students, we went down to 4 or 5. And I have to say our faculty were terrific. They pitched right in and said, yes, I'll teach multiple sections of that class. It's important that we keep our community safe. So it will be all hands on deck, everybody participating, and we'll figure it out, because it's really important that our students are able to complete their education.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting that you mentioned how you have nurses and first responders. They're becoming first responders and EMTs all through online courses. So can you explain more on the impact of virtual learning for essential workers and for first responders?
Well, what we've been doing as a system, we've had online classes for quite a while. Usually it's about 20% of what happens on any one of our campuses. But what happened that was different this time was faculty really working with individual students and saying, how can I help you? what is it that you need so that you can finish this course? When we go to an online environment, these LNAs and EMTs oftentimes are parents, and they may have their children sitting right next to them, and their child is doing their online work. So we've worked to offer support in the form of all of our college campus parking lots have enhanced Wi-Fi. We established at every one of our colleges food pantries, and we ramped up the number of tutors and the extra help that was available for students. So we've tried to build a lot of services around the student, doing courses as well as working.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like about like a work-life balance for these groups, but also equip them with the same resources, the same level of education, so that they do walk into these areas well prepared. So from
Very, very important to us. And many of these professions are licensed professions. So we want our students to pass those tests, with flying colors. And so it becomes, what is it that this individual student needs? The good thing about the community colleges is that we're small. We're serving thousands of students or hundreds of students, and we can work with students individually so that we meet not only their learning needs, but as you said, their life balance needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all really, really good points. So another question that I have that our audience is curious about is, from a source that I've found, it shows that New Hampshire has one of the lowest success rates in public education within the nation. Can you go deeper into these issues and like kind of what causes these low success rates within education in New Hampshire?
So, Brian, just tell me more. Are you thinking in terms of secondary education or post-secondary education?
Is for the purposes of the conversation post-secondary.
Okay. Well, the good news in New Hampshire is that your community colleges actually have the highest graduation rate in the Northeast. And, graduation rates they can be deceiving because all of those rates are based on somebody coming to college and being full-time and getting through in 2 years. The reality of the situation for us is that only talks about a quarter of our student body. 75% of our student body are part-time. And so they do finish. The average student finishes in 3 years. In some cases, if they're only taking a couple courses at a time, it's 6 years. But the federal standards that are out there don't capture that kind of information. They capture the conventional student. And frankly, yes, community colleges are made for the conventional student, but more than that, we're made for the person who needs to fit us into his or her life. We are not only affordable, but that whole accessible piece is we want to make it as easy as possible for you to do it. And it might be being part-time is the best way for you to, get your education. So much of what we have emphasized is what can we do to help you complete. One of the examples I can give you is the cost of textbooks. For many students, that is a barrier. Well, the community college has entered into this program called Open Educational Resources, and it is a way to find the materials that students need in a free fashion. So our goal has been to save our students money, and in fact, in the last year, the estimate, last 2 years, is that we've saved our students $1 million in textbook costs. So again, trying to do everything that we can. Another example is the number of internships and earn while you learn opportunities for students, because some students are not motivated by thinking about, well, in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, I'll be fill in the career. They want to be starting in the work right now. So we also provide those kinds of opportunities by working with companies and giving students an employment opportunity along with their coursework.
Absolutely. That's really, really interesting. So kind of like the big issue is the work-life balance, but also accommodating part-time students, if I understand correctly, correct?
Yes, yes. Um, and the other piece of the work that we do is working with different foundations and grants so that we can provide the assistance that people need. One of the things that can happen when students are working is they don't qualify for as much federal financial aid.
Mhm.
as I'd like to see. So we've got scholarship programs. In fact, we have one right now, the graduation gift. So if somebody graduated this past May or June, they can come to the community colleges and take a free course to try it out in case they don't think college is necessarily for them.
Absolutely, that's a really, really interesting point. So, kind of going off of that, can you explain kind of the issues that the Latinx and underrepresented communities face within higher education within New Hampshire, and what are you doing to address those issues?
That has become an issue of much greater prominence for us because our success is completely dependent upon the success of our students. Right now, across our system, 13% of our student body would fall into underrepresented. Although, if you look at the cities of Manchester and Nashua, it's a much higher percentage. And so,
Mhm.
those two colleges in particular have brought in bilingual tutors, bilingual admissions officers. They have done more to support our communities of color and our communities of non-native speakers and so on. So there are organizations on the campus so that students can find folks that are like them and thinking about things. We've put in extra counseling. So there is quite a bit of opportunity available for people who haven't, really thought much about coming to school and might need a little bit of extra help. Most of our campuses have English as a second language courses, but some of our colleges have more opportunities.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for answering all those questions. So, can kind of going off of that, do you think that socioeconomic status and background does that have a big impact with the success of some of these marginalized groups within New Hampshire?
It has an impact. I don't know. I would say a big impact. I'm hoping that that's exactly what our community colleges are addressing. And I am hoping that by talking about your ability to fit us into what you're already doing will enhance that. We certainly track retention. We have retention coaches. And with our ability to focus on individuals and on groups, I'm seeing, greater success. But it is something that is top of mind for us because our mission is to help all of the citizens in New Hampshire lead a satisfying and productive life. And the first way to do that is for people to have the opportunity to work in a career that gives them a living wage. And so that's our focus.
Absolutely. So, kind of to reiterate, the biggest issues that are more pressing within the New Hampshire community colleges is making it accessible, making it affordable, but also prepping students to get a good standing job like right outside of college, like assuming that they transfer to a 4-year school or they go to straight to the workforce with an associate's.
Yeah, and in fact, 30% of the students upon graduation transfer. Another 8% transfer within a year or so, and we think that's because they're getting themselves started in the careers that they're in. But there's a whole group of students who don't at the time go on to transfer. We work very hard so that our courses are transferable, so that if you graduate this year and you want to work in your field for a few years and then you want to progress, those credits are still going to go with you. Yes, accessibility and opportunity are important to us. Retention and getting you to your goal is important to us. And our connections, not only to business and industry, but to four-year colleges is another big pillar for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, my last question for our audience is: what are some resources that you recommend our audience should know to succeed within higher education in New Hampshire?
Well, it depends upon where we are with our audience. If you are the middle school or high school and you're not sure what it is you want to do, I recommend that you use the Center for College Planning that's sponsored by NEEF. If you are in high school or for that matter out in the workforce, every one of our colleges on their website has a career coach where you can do a career assessment and get a sense of what you might be interested in. And I would encourage people to visit the community college that's near them to see what the opportunities are. I think you might be delighted and surprised. People can already use our libraries. They're open to the public. There are events that happen at the colleges that the general community is welcome to be, part of. And as I said before, we have enhanced our Wi-Fi. So if you're running into broadband problems, come sit in one of our parking lots and use our Wi-Fi.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Susan. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining us this week on NHLN Opinion Plus. Do you have anything left to say for our wonderful audience before we depart?
I certainly hope that they will visit us, and particularly if you are a recent high school graduate, I want you to look at this gift to the graduates, because it is your opportunity to put your toes in the college water. From the system website, which is CCSNH, which stands for Community College System of New Hampshire.edu, you can find us and find which of the colleges might be of interest to you. So thanks so much for the opportunity to talk with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us this week, Dr. Susan.
Thank you.
And join us for another episode in 2 weeks. For more information about our discussion today, check out our website on nhlatinonewscom. Follow us on Twitter at NHLatinoNews and our Instagram at NH_Latina News. I'm Bron Zapata with NHLN Opinion Plus, and we'll see you next time.